I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the June 23rd regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. So the pledge of allegiance, roll call, please.
Brown?
Here.
Lehman?
Here.
Underwood?
Here.
Gilman?
Here. All right, all present. All right, we have one blue sheet item for the agenda, which is some of our work from earlier, and that'll be added to or amended to our item I. And with that,
Motion to approve the agenda through item J.
support. And Carl. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have an agenda unanimously. Anyone have a conflict of interest? Thanks, Pete. Seeing none, we move to our first public comment. Do we have anybody in the public who would like to speak during our first public comment? If so, I'll have Kelly read the. If not, looks like we are free from public comment for the first item. Our number one action item was an appointment. Okay, the Justin Sander, they're not going to be here tonight. So our first item is going to be Dan Olson. Seeing how he is here, we can move forward with that.
Good evening, Dan Olson with Mission Hills HOA. I just wanted to kind of report back on the meeting that we had with the volunteer working group on Bluff Road. And what I'm handing you is that the top sheet is kind of a summary sheet that I put together. And then behind that are two work products from Gordy Fraser and Associates that were produced in the course of the working group meetings. And I think would be helpful for you folks to be able to put eyes on. But just kind of to bring you up to speed, we had some discussions and Gordy Fraser and Associates did some workups. And I think kind of looking at what they worked up for the option 3, the do nothing approach, and comparing that to the option 1, which would be repairing the road, would be some things that I wanted to just highlight tonight, just briefly. So what Gordy and Fraser and Associates did is they did a very comprehensive look at the entirety of Bluff Road. And part of their workup, as you can see, if you get into the weeds of their write-up, is they came up with a figure and a plan to basically do shoreline work the entire stretch, all the way to the almost to Warsaw Road, where until you start hitting houses on that side of the road. But their calculation was scalable. So we asked them, if you shrunk that down, is it basically scalable by linear feet? They also calculated the cost of just completely rebuilding the road and also putting in the necessary drainage that would need to go with that. So before I get to that, though, I just wanted to highlight what they looked at. When they looked at option 3, which is the kind of the do nothing, put the cul-de-sacs in and put a path in between and basically not have the road open for through traffic. They compared, they identified a couple things that GEI did not quantify. And one of the major things that they quantified was the property acquisition, which GEI fronted that they did not include that in their $500,000 estimate. The other thing that Gordy Fraser and Associates noted was that the cul-de-sacs as drawn or as concept in their drawings would not meet your road commission standards. They need to be bigger. So in all likelihood, the cost of those cul-de-sacs is going to be more than the $500,000 that's being estimated there. And then they also noted that would increase some of the grading costs as well. But so one of the things that's not quantified by either of those parties, and GEI highlighted this, is that there's going to need to be some type of shoreline repair, even on the do nothing approach. And there was no quantification of what length of shoreline work would need to be done, but that's kind of an unknown. So if you look at these, if kind of looking at that top chart, we know that the other thing that was not provided for was the plat revision. So if you're going to take property or acquire different property that's in that to build this cul-de-sac that's within the plat. And that's going to require revising the plat, which would require circuit court, an action filed in circuit court and noticing everybody within the plat and within, I think, 300 feet of the platted road. So there's a lot of more expense there with that 500,000 that we're talking about. And then with Gordy Frazier's quantifying the property acquisition, we know that it's going to be at least more than 650,000. So turning to the option one, the repairing the road, Gordy Frazier outlined what would be involved in reconstructing 1,800 linear feet of road, and that did include some drainage features that would be cross culverts. And they came up with a figure of their estimate for the construction costs of that were $281,000. They also outlined additional drainage improvements that would complement that. And that was they estimated that to be $120,000, which gives you kind of a subtotal of $401,000 just to do the area and a little bit beyond of the current closed section of road. And that's road construction and drainage. It does not include the shoreline work. And so what I did was I scaled the figures for Gordy Frazier for the shoreline work and took a number of, let's just say we have 650 feet that is undone, 500 on the south, 150 feet on the north. If you just take that 660 feet that's currently undone, you're looking at a figure based on Gordy Frazier's cost estimate for shoreline work. That would cost $412,000 for a total project cost of $813,000. Also, just for comparison's sake, without doing anything different with the road reconstruction or the drainage improvements, took a look at what do we currently have for a current contract with the road commission. So as you recall, you awarded a contract to AJ's Excavating in December for 240 feet of shoreline work to the north of that. That comes out to a linear foot cost of $484. So if you take the 650 linear feet, multiply that times 484 under that known contract that you folks have, the cost of the shoreline work would be $314,000 with a total project cost of $716,000. I put contractors ACOM in there because that's a previous quote that we got from a very well-known contractor that came out to about $450 per linear foot. And so you're looking at a project cost with that type of a cost calculation at just under $700,000. So I just wanted to, I think if you look at the details in the Gordy Frazier's cost estimates, that would be helpful. But I think I just wanted to point that out, that there's a lot of hidden costs to this do nothing approach. And when you really boil down what's necessary to rebuild the road and restore it to a condition where it can take traffic again, you're probably looking at a cheaper option of actually just fixing the road. And so right now, as we stand, GEI was going to take all this input, and Commissioner Lehman and Commissioner Underwood tasked them to complete the phase 2 and phase 3 of their studies to come up with their final estimates on all of these different components, so that you have something under your contract that you have with them to kind of review and reach some decision points. So I just wanted to kind of highlight those things for you folks. As far as the drain district discussion, that was a kind of an unexpected presentation as far as just the scope of what that project would entail and the cost. And there was a very high cost both to the road commission as a beneficiary to that drain district, as well as the residents. And I think what it boils down for us is that if it's not needed if it's not needed for the road, then I guess, is this something that's going to be supported by the township and the road commission, or do we just need to, do what's needed for the road's sake, and everything else might be a nice to have, but not necessarily a need to have. So that's, I think the cost share, I think the total project for the drain district to address all the drainage issues in that area was coming out at like $3.9 million. with a beneficiary cost of over 2 million to the road commission. So it's a little bit of a,
So, yeah,
instead of it being something to help offset the cost of the drainage work, it was gonna probably,
probably exceed what we would be,
dwarf it.
right.
So
Interesting. Now, you guys, when was your last meeting?
2.5 weeks ago.
2.5 weeks ago. Okay, so these guys seen this before, or?
They've seen the underlying
Okay.
documents. The top is something I just prepared just to kind of boil it down and compare like what we're looking at for one option versus the other option, just to kind of focus us towards
So,
what is our real budget here.
right, now, as far as the option of, option number one, as far as repair of the original closed session, I mean, does any and all of this require the further repair and or at least the protection of the shoreline, or is this something that Gordy Fraser thinks would make it usable now? I mean, for example, I mean, if we said, okay, Gordy Fraser, you we're going to contract with you for $813,000. I mean, is that something that they think they could make happen?
So what they did with their calculation is they assumed no credit for work that was already done. So the 400 feet that was done north of the barricades that other property owners have already done.
Right.
They just assumed, like, for the sake of argument,
It didn't exist.
that doesn't exist. So what they noted was that their cost estimates would be reduced based on what work has already been done, but rather than kind of get it all confusing, they just did an armoring south of the barricade, actually by about 100 feet, going all the way up through the area that you guys have already have a contract for, another, through the area that's already been done until it starts to curve back towards Warsaw Road, which is the drawing. If you look at those detailed drawings, are hard to see on that first set of documents. That's the shoreline revetment work that they have outlined. But so if you reduce the work, we've already done 500 feet, and so let's just, if we just, for the sake of argument, take that completely out of play, you're only talking 650 feet of shoreline work that needs to be done. The other thing is, just to point out, is that the work that you're doing north of the barricade, where the road is still open, the same contractor that our work did the other 400 feet that you're going to be tying into. So there seems to be at least some comfort level with the work that was done north of the barricade. Otherwise, I would imagine you guys wouldn't just be simply tying into that existing work, you would be complementing it.
Do you guys have any thoughts? I mean, you've been going to these, Joe? Yeah.
Well, Dan brings up a number of points that, I guess maybe Wayne should speak to this a little bit more, but we haven't really accepted the fact that the work that has been done would necessarily meet our standard, even though the association has paid for it. And the other thing is there's the continuing of the armament is okay, but some of these other costs, like the cul-de-sac, we may do when we talk about the do nothing approach. I think our do nothing approach could be really
Do nothing.
And it would be hard to wrap our hands around even their minimal thing, because I don't believe we'd ever construct. I don't believe I would vote for it. And Joe spoke that he probably wouldn't, to construct cul-de-sacs there in those areas, open, close. Maybe we'll have to do something better than we have, like make a T, but it would be minimal stuff within our right.
Well, and how much room do you have for that even? I mean,
We might be able to get a turn. I mean, we might be able to get a truck turnaround in one side of them. Or not. Maybe Wayne should speak to that a little bit, but it would be minimal. We didn't consciously, GI proposed this, but they're telling us what they would do to stabilize the soil and stuff would be to stabilize the bank is much more substantial based on the least amount of risk factor for it to ever happen again. They're going to propose Wayne, just speak up if I'm paraphrasing. They're gonna propose something that would be to industry standards at the worst case scenario. And we may be willing to accept something less. I don't know, like what AJ is doing along there, what that's doing is fine, but she talked to us about some hydraulic analysis stuff, and they're gonna propose something that's, I thought Carlin was quite competent. She spoke well, and she was the GI team we have giving us what they expect us to do is pretty well versed in this stuff. And I think she's going to suggest something more that's been done around there that we wouldn't have to address it. But it is a huge amount of money. And Dan's point about bringing in the drain district is an expensive proposal that there's probably very little public support for within your association.
And frankly, if it involves, excuse me, that expense to the road commission for being a beneficiary.
I don't think it could be that high. Because it's based on our footprint.
Gets 50% of our area in that district.
So
So the district was just in the right of way.
So the calculations, the drainage district might even be worse for the other people than if ours is.
If your share, if your
Yeah,
cost
because
share
if
is not 2 million, then it
Because,
Increase,
yeah, because think about.
That's
how
gonna go
big
over
Cass
real well
Road
too,
was.
right?
yeah, I mean,
Cass Road is massive,
Yeah,
and that was 49,000
Right.
was our responsibility.
yeah.
So, but some of the engineering concept they talk about, like the deep ditching, I love that on the backside of the road to get that water
Yes.
coming out of the hill. The problem is I think there's gonna be a tremendous amount of utility conflicts, right? There's new gas line and new fiber in there. So you just can't dig a trench 17 feet long, 2,000 feet deep, even though that's the way to save our
All
road.
right, and that just taking a pause there, and normally I'd prefer to go to Carl first before, but this is one of those things I want to say for the record. I still think we need to investigate whether or not the work done by the utilities has caused our problem, and I don't think we've done our due diligence there. You know, if for example, there was a good working natural aquifer or something that allowed the water to flow through, you know, conveniently about the time that they finished that work, that utility work, is when the problem started. And so, you know, for the record, I want to state that I think that was part of the problem. And frankly, it'd be a lot better to look at their insurance companies if it was the problem than it is to go and start digging into our own pockets. Just my 2 cents on that.
You have two things that they've spoken to us about, though. The water table in the ground and the wave action of the Great Lakes that simultaneously came together and caused this catastrophic event
It's a perfect storm.
of our losing Bluff Road. So I don't think beyond a reasonable doubt you could ever assign enough to the utility companies. I don't think you'll get a hydraulic engineer to say, yeah, you're not going to be able to. It might be coincidental, but I don't believe we would put together it would be so expensive to put together proof beyond a reasonable doubt that a judge would award us or a jury would award us to talk to them, and they're not going to willingly, in my belief, acquiesce to this, because if they do it here, the next time the shoreline collapses somewhere else in the state of Michigan, they'd be forced with the same thing. I
just think the time.
It is, and you know, we certainly have the homeowners association where Dan lives. The biggest blowout is caused by the detention pond at the bottom of the hill that the developer dug, but it's not even on your homeowners.
it's not ours.
It's not even theirs. So there's a lot of conflicting problems.
But all of this is supposed to solve that, the drainage improvements, the 6-inch.
They would be running, they would have drainage going along the west side, and then they would have cutout drains going to the water.
Which
at
makes
regular
sense. I mean,
intervals.
It's a great.
it lets the pressure off.
Yeah, it's a great solution to let the water run through there.
Right. Yep, you're intercepting the water so that the soils underneath of the roadway would be dry.
Yeah,
You'd get that, you'd put that out there, and it would be an engineered outlet so that that's all taken care of. As Alan mentioned and Dan mentioned, GEI had, they had estimated for along that coastal, area, an engineered design for that. Birdie Fraser didn't do that. That's not their expertise. That is GEI's expertise. So they would be looking at that. But now GEI's earlier assessments of it and looking at it would be something similar to other projects that they've done. That would be something of the 10-foot in height nature in order to adequately protect that entire area from the wave action. So it would be substantially more. So areas that have already been kind of addressed, if they don't meet that height requirement, they would wind up having to kind of go over top of that or increase it in order to.
Dry mat is still getting undercut unless we have it to a certain.
Yeah.
And was it AJ that came and talked to us, or was it who?
That was our contractor, Jason Wessler, that came and spoke to you folks.
He kind of had the overlapping stacking thing.
Yeah, he had the little model and like talked about locking in those
Interlocking it.
And as far as the complementary of the work, like we went with a kind of a 2-to-1 ratio. So we were up at least 4 feet and 8 feet out with ours. So if the run-up and that wave run-up analysis is, it's got to be rock that goes up 10 feet for wave action. Just along our area, the toe work has already been done. You would just be putting in, 5 to 6 feet of additional armor rock with geofabric behind it. So that cost would be pretty minimal as far as the extensiveness of it. It's where you get down into the toe stones and digging those. And I'll just also, just a couple things. The Joe Roque, who's the owner of the southern lot where the southern scarf is, right now your right of way is not underwater. Your right of way is above ground. So there wouldn't be any legal prohibition from you doing things within your right of way. But if you wanted to work with her to develop some kind of a collaborative, she's willing to do some toe stone work on her property, and you guys complement that. There would be still some opportunity because that lot is not sold yet, and so there might be some amenability there. But as far as the beyond a reasonable doubt with the utility companies, we would be talking preponderance of the evidence. Just to use a lawyer term, but so 51 to 49. So all we have to show is more likely than that.
So do you believe that would be a likely outcome?
Well, the precipitating event that started this was a tree that became saturated within the right of way that tipped over and took the bank with it, and that whole bank was saturated with water. And as GEI's initial boring showed, there was a clay silt layer that was collecting water within 3 to 5 feet of the surface that's now destabilizing the whole bank. And that's exactly where they were putting the pipes. And it went through twice because the gas company went through, and then the cable company went through, and then after everything happened, the cable company went through again to move cable with a ballistic driller. It was like vibrating the whole ground. I was out there. So, and everybody says it happens every time they go in there and do utility work. So that's like this.
So in the end, it could be who has the best experts.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you have years of water knowing how it's going to get to someplace, and you do anything to disrupt that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Speedway, right on the corner of Bayview Parkway and M72, but there's that gas station had water flowing up out of the drains in their parking lot for like 6 months. I was like, well, what is going on with that? And they said, oh, well, it just started when they started putting the houses up above, and they disturbed some kind of artesian spring or something, and it just, so anyway, that I just wanted to, so the bottom line is we're waiting for GEI to come up with their numbers and to finish what the task is on that contract.
All right. One other question.
No, I'm good.
One other question is, did we get your gate done? No. When do we have the gate done?
Can't get the contractor, so we're doing it ourselves.
Okay. And we're gonna be done at the end of the week?
Probably Probably Monday, I would guess, it'll be complete, but we can't, because we can't get anybody to even respond. We finally got one person to respond, and he said, yeah, I can do it.
Put the talent in the back to work. You know, so.
Yeah, so we're gonna have our guys just go out there and drill it. We're gonna probably make contact with Dan, make sure we're right where he wants it, so.
Gotta do something for you, man.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, so it'll be probably, you'll probably hear from Jay or Rick.
Okay.
And they'll call you on your cell.
Apple Fence couldn't do it again, or?
No.
Okay.
No,
Good times.
nobody can do it right now.
Okay.
So we're trying, but
All right.
we're just gonna put it up ourselves. We got the gate and everything taken care of. It's just now getting it installed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, that brings us to our second appointment. Bill,
That'd be me.
give us some good news.
That didn't start out real well.
I just didn't know how, we received all our comments now. And let me take you back to last meeting. We told you that the draft document had been submitted to MDOT and to Federal Highway Administration, the Pell document. And we're waiting comments, their final comments. We got their final comments. We compiled their comments and sent them back and said, did we get your comments accurate? And they replied, yes, you did. And we talked about how are we going to finish this document? Are you going to sign it? Are you going to sign it? You know, all that kind of stuff. And MDOT said, no, it's not an MDOT job, so they're not going to sign. We have the first sheet of the document is going to be a concurrence document, basically, that the agency that signs it says, yes, you can move on to you followed all the regulations, you can move on to the NEPA process. Federal Highway Administration agreed to sign it, so they're going to sign it. We got all their comments back and we're compiling it. We had just a couple of things that we needed to address with the Road Commission, and we did that today, actually. And we'll be finalizing the document, sending it back to them tomorrow morning, most likely, back to the Federal Highway Administration, and with all the changes made. And so we're like this close to being done, completely done. I've been saying that for a few months.
You mean to the point where we can design?
No, we have to, you're aware. We have
It has
to
a
go
whole
through
different
that.
meaning to me.
Yeah, well, let me put it this way, the Pell process will be finished.
Okay.
Now, the Pell process is pre-NEPA, and we have to go through the NEPA document first. That's the environmental assessment before the Road Commission can move into design, detailed design, and right-of-way acquisition. Once we go through that process, then you can start designing and acquiring right-of-way. This Pell document is pre-NEPA. We're telling you that. We're following the process because you're going to need substantial federal aid.
So once we're fully engaged in the NEPA process, then that essentially releases us out of the whole Pell requirement.
Oh, yeah.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done with the Pell process, which is, again, we're glad we did this Pell process, and you should be glad too,
Yeah, no,
because
no,
we went through and identified all of the critical elements that we need to evaluate in the NEPA process, and the benefit of going through it is we've eliminated some of the obvious alignment alternatives.
Yeah.
We still have a few things to do. The major element left to do is US 31. That, where we're going to come out at US 31, and that's going to involve some conversations, detailed conversations, engineering evaluation with MDOT. But we feel we can handle that. They'll be a partner, but it's all conceptual still.
Do they still have that building where we could go right through them there?
No, that would be the IRS facility.
That's fine.
The TSC is the next building up.
Oh,
We probably wouldn't even get to them. The three options that we're looking at the west end when we get to that level is the straight across option that connects with McCray Hill. The one that's shown in our document that goes down, realigns or connects to existing Silver Pines Road. And then there's a third option that we kind of briefly looked at because there's some engineering considerations on US 31. There was a flat area north of Silver Pines Road. We conceptually looked at moving Silver Pines Road up to hit that flat spot. So the realignment comes in a little further north of there. So there's options that we feel
At
that
that
we
point,
can
we're
look
still
at.
at a pretty good grade though, if you go much north of the Silver Pines, all right?
There is a flat area north of Silver
Okay.
Pines, yes. And that's where the target would be, but it's about a 5% downgrade. And, you know, not sure we want to, right now, there's no stopping
The
along.
more we reach up there, the longer our roadway is though too.
Yes, the further south you realign, yeah, the longer the road goes, and, you know, some people, are they going to want to go down that way to go back up north, you know, but we have to look at safety along US 31. We have to look at what MDOT wants. The option would be somewhat difficult with reprofiling US 31, but that's a
Sooner we
possibility.
get this bill, we get this South Airport cleared up.
Yeah, South Airport Road, that's another option. We have to look at impacts to South Airport Road and as an alternative, because we feel the public is going to, why don't you just improve South Airport Road? Because one of the elements that we've been looking at is the congestion at South Airport Road. One of the items that we're looking to relieve is congestion on South Airport Road. But that's not the only problem at South Airport Road. And that's not the only purpose and need. Also includes redundancy, resiliency,
Yes.
and that does nothing.
Right.
Relieving congestion on South Airport Road does nothing for that. And so it doesn't satisfy the purpose and need, even when it is.
But we've addressed all that in the Pell process.
We did.
We're kind of beyond that. I just, you know.
In some respects, but we still have to look at, everybody keeps going back. We've heard it through the process. Not everybody, several comments have been, why don't you just improve South Airport Road? And we have to look at, we think it's pretty easy to eliminate that option because of if you address congestion along South Airport Road, you widen South Airport Road. If you widen South Airport Road, you effectively eliminate a lot of businesses along South Airport Road. And while that relieves congestion right there, then you don't need the expansion. If you eliminate all the businesses along there. So it's a relatively simple one to eliminate as an option, but it needs to be done. It's just part of the NEPA process. Anyway, let me forward now. We've got all the comments and we're going to address them. We expect to present a final document before your next meeting to Wayne and Brad. How we present it to you to be signed is something we'll work out with Wayne and Brad. Whether we need to make a presentation to you, you've seen it. I don't know that we need to formally, 2 or 3 of us come up here and tell you what's in the document. You've already seen it.
Right.
So the next steps basically are providing you with a cost estimate for the actual NEPA document, the environmental assessment. We expect to do that in the next couple of months. We're beginning that process right now internally.
Is there a ballpark how long it takes?
They want, the federal guidelines identify a year. An environmental assessment should take a year. They acknowledge that complexities, that's guideline. Complexities are tough. And we know that this one's got some environmental concerns and there are relocation aspects of this job. There's 15 residential relocations. And there are some sensitive features to avoid. And you're talking about a high bridge. You're talking about a complex bridge. You have to know that we can build it, first of all. So that's part of the process. And then there's the public engagement aspect of it still has to continue. There's requirements for a public hearing. And we have to engage. Some of the comments we got in the Pell process were, have you talked to the people that are being relocated? There's a church along Hartman. There's a brewery along Hartman. And we've had public meetings and we encourage everybody to show, but we have not gone to those people and presented it. I suspect we'll have some business focus meetings for the people that are going to be directly affected. That's what they were asking us. Our answer was, no, we haven't, but that will be done in the NEPA process. That can be done. It's normally done in the NEPA process. The Pell process is to bring things up to light that need to be looked at. And we'll shortcut the NEPA process for sure. So to answer your question, Joe, year to 15 months is a good target. And But we are doing, and part of the NEPA process, part of what we're doing is some preliminary engineering. We're gonna get topo. That brings up another issue of that advanced work that we did. We've finished that, and we've processed it. We're in the final stages of processing it, but if you want to see it, I'll show it to you after the meeting, or I'll provide these guys with it if you want to see it. It's really the same you've seen in concept, but more detailed. And it's pretty dramatic. The topography is pretty dramatic. You're talking 90 feet from the top over near Keystone to the river. 90 feet. It's pretty dramatic, and there's some pretty steep slopes.
It's gonna be cool.
Huh?
It's gonna be cool.
Well, you said all along, there's gonna be signature, not just the
That's right.
bridge, but just
That's
the,
right.
you know, the construction aspect of it's gonna be pretty cool. You know, just from a geotechnical standpoint, and there are some items that we identified that could be done as mitigation. The berms along the riverbank are very obvious and could be eliminated in some respects to improve the floodplain aspects of the river. So there's some things that we're doing. We're very excited about moving forward. You're going to be seeing me, if this keeps going, you're going to be seeing me around for a while. And you see these little gray things over here? I won't say anything more. Not in public. So, Wayne, Brad, is there anything that I've missed that you'd like to bring up, or anything from the board that you guys have any questions about?
No, I think you've done a very good job there. I kind of trying to feel the pulse of the board there. We've been talking with Bill, and in the background, they're kind of starting to put together a proposal for the next phase. Anticipating that this one's going to wrap up here real soon, and that that you would anticipate wanting to have the next phase to be to evaluate and move on. So we've been working on that.
You like going forward?
We would like to.
One of the things that will come out of the next two is they'll be able to tell us when we really need to start making contacts for federal aid.
Yeah, the funding aspect of this is big.
So that's going to come out of this next phase to start saying, okay, when do we really need to start looking to start accumulating federal aid and state aid and everything else.
You know, the Secretary of Transportation lives down the street.
Yes.
Thanks, Phil.
I don't know what influence he has.
So, yeah, otherwise I have nothing else. I think that covered everything that I need.
I'll stick
You
around.
guys have any questions?
Thank you. Thanks. Bill. All right. Brings us to our consent calendar.
Consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Request by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as an agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. 5, reports and communications. 6, Act 51 report for 2021, and 7, 2022 Board of Directors election.
Does anybody on this board wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Does anybody in the public wish to have anything? Dan?
Just the minutes, just a small correction.
All right. Let's do the minutes.
In our discussion, I think it's the last meeting about GEI being in attendance at the meeting and being authorized to attend either in person or via Skype. It references OHM instead of GEI. It should be GEI, unless OHM wants to join the party.
No. That was an easy one.
You think about that a little longer.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, so if we could correct that?
Yep.
All right, I think we concur with the correction. Anybody else have anything they'd like to remove? With that correction, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve
consent calendar as corrected for the minutes.
I'll support.
And Carl. All right. Roll call, please.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. Thank you, Dan. Good catch. I missed that earlier, so. All right. Brings us to, yeah, I was removed from the consent, none. Retirement system annual report form, housekeeping, Phil.
Yep, we just got our actuarial, so I was able to complete the PA 202 form for the state. We're 98% funded in our pension plan. And we pay as you go on, as you know, on the retiree healthcare. So we will trigger underfunded on that because we don't pre-fund the healthcare, but our waiver applications have always been approved in the past. So once they send me the letter, I'll come back to you with the package and we'll need a resolution at that time. But we're doing very well. Expenditures next year for the pension will be less than about 77,000, and then the healthcare would be about 94,000 annually. So we're in pretty good shape. I kind of was looking around at other counties, and some of them are still putting additional contributions of $1 million plus to kind of get caught up.
Yeah.
Is there a benefit to get up to 100%?
Right now, the state keeps on changing some of the requirements. They lower interest rates and things, so every time we get 100% funded, they kind of make it a little more conservative. So there's like a $204,000 change in assumptions that affected us last year, otherwise we wouldn't have had any.
Several years ago, I think, I don't know if it was Oakland County or whatever, one of the county governments in the state, they bonded their liability. And they sold it 100%. And then a couple of years later, they're 77%. So it's a mess.
It's like 65,000 a year.
160.
Between the two, yeah.
Yeah, so that's.
So it doesn't make any sense to do more than what we're doing.
No, we're at a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan is closed for the.
Yeah.
So.
Last year. So, yeah. All right, anything else on this? Okay, item F, Wayne, all right?
No.
Phil Burgers, I'm sorry.
Phil wasn't done yet.
This one will need a resolution.
Okay.
So ours is doing some housekeeping and they wanted to kind of have a nice form to go across all of their members, the defined compensation. We're not changing how we define compensation. It's just kind of codifying how we, which items we include or exclude when we report to them. So.
Okay, do we have the resolution in front of us? Or is it in our packet?
I thought we had the, it should have been in the packet. There would have been 3 different plans.
It wouldn't be in there.
Yeah, it's on page 9. Yeah. Basically, Kylie will type up a resolution.
Okay.
Well, we have 3 different plans. We have a union plan, we have one for administration, and one for the pensioners.
Does he need approval right now for this resolution or for the?
Yeah.
The resolution is to approve.
What page do you want me going, Phil?
What's that?
What page do you want me on?
I think you're on it.
Those
We're all
are
okay
correct.
with that.
Okay.
I think it'd be
Yeah, it's a confirmation of an agreement.
Defined contribution plan agreement. I think that's the motion, right? To approve.
So make the motion.
Sure, I'll make that motion. To approve the defined contribution plan agreement.
Yeah, it's just a confirmation.
All right, so Joe and Alan. All right, Kylie, roll call.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. All right. Have that, do I sign that then? Or is
Yeah,
it?
I think so.
Okay, so just get that. And then now it moves us to Wayne. Right-of-way planning and acquisition for future improvements.
Yes, so if you recall, take a little time machine back to September of 21, and we brought the intersection study from the Hammond at 3 Mile and Hammond at Garfield for how those intersections would best work in the, now and in the future. And the analysis came back that they're a satisfactory condition now for handling traffic. We have a couple areas that drop down to a level of surface D, which is perfectly acceptable. But this will not continue on that way. So in the future, what's going to work best at those two intersections are going to be roundabouts. But because we are looking at down the road, a few years down the road, it does make sense that we try to look at and plan now for the future and acquire right of way while we can, so that our future needs are going to be taken care of, and we don't have to wind up purchasing buildings or things of that nature there. So with that, I asked our one of our pre-selected engineering firms into this one. We chose OHM because they are the leaders with roundabout designs, to take a look at and do some early preliminary engineering, some planning here, pulling together some information, with TART and the townships, and looking at the future roundabouts, which are going to be turbo roundabouts. They're a little bit different design. They're a little bit more elliptical. They better define the lane so people aren't switching lanes in the roundabout. And then look at how those would fit in at those two intersections, trying to avoid what's currently there and maximizing, like empty, some of the empty acreage there. So they put together a proposal for us. We've reviewed it through that, and that's what's before you in your packet. In order to do this, and this would look at and identify the right-of-way needs for future roundabouts, but would not do anything with property acquisition. We could take that information, then we could go and work with any local firms to actually acquire that. But this would kind of set us up so that we would have that right of way for in the future. This proposal is for an expense fee of $35,000, not to be exceeded without any prior approval, and it would be on a actual cost basis.
Discussion. Start with Alan.
Well, we spoke about this a little bit today, but the planning for these, I guess it depends on how you believe the route. Wayne said that it's in the future, the roundabouts are probably going to be the best plan, even though we don't necessarily need them now. This is certainly a step toward building the roundabouts, and I guess you have to believe in the roundabouts to want to take steps to build. That's all I have to say.
Joe?
So we're gonna have an engineering firm go talk to these people, and then we're gonna acquire these properties based on the engineering firm's recommendation. And there's nobody local that can do it.
This is not, they're not gonna be talking to the people. They're gonna be,
Talks about stakeholder meeting.
Yes, so we would have stakeholder meetings. So we'd be looking and talking with, and gathering that information with zoning for setbacks, what they're with the TARP folks on that there. This would not involve any property acquisition. That would be separate, and that's something that we could be doing here with local firms.
That'd be separate based upon whatever the outcome of the
study is.
And I have we just buy the right of way. We don't do like an MDOT where they buy the whole parcel and sell a parcel after they're done building the construction, correct?
That would be based on what our needs are and what in your negotiations with the parcel holder.
I mean, I'm gonna be blunt, it's logical to do this at Garfield and South Airport. I'm not sure it's logical to do it at
You mean
3.
Sutton, Garfield and Hammond.
Hammond, sorry,
I know.
sorry, we can talk about so many roads today. It's logical there, I don't know how logical it is to look at 3 Mile.
And this is to look at both of those.
Correct. Right. I'll put out there as well, we are very constrained on both of those, 3 Mile especially. That when Hammond goes further, we're gonna see that much more increased traffic. And one of the things that, that 3 Mile won't be able to accommodate is the addition of a right turn lane, a dedicated right turn lane. There's one there now. We are planning on changing that to be a through and right turn lane, which will require us to do some widening east of 3 Mile and then narrow it back on down.
Yeah, I think we talked about that before too, versus a roundabout,
Right.
even, and frankly,
Yeah.
with the board giving its to the crossing for the children's, going to school and whatnot, that was one of my concerns, is that, well, we should probably never have a roundabout there if that's the case. But that extra lane though is.
Yeah. Does this study take into effect any major upgrade to 3 Mile between Hammond and South Airport? If we're gonna do this moving forward, I assume that we're eventually going to go on to 3 Mile and correct its present condition.
Yeah, well, for future upgrades on 3 Mile right now, we would wind up doing a complete reconstruction. The addition of some center left turn lanes in a couple locations, but predominantly the 2 lane will handle all of that current traffic.
Even in the future, after Hammond is.
Things change as we go along, and some areas expand quicker and then slow down quick, so, obviously before we got into a position where we're gonna go and build something, is you study it again and find out if our past, assumptions and studies are still valid.
Carl.
I think they hit almost everything. I guess the 35 is just to study the 2 intersections. Nothing further than that.
Correct, right. It sets up does the kind of the early preliminary engineering, identifies what type of right of way needs that we would need in order to kind of fit that into there.
So in the scope of what they want, what the proposal is it a direction that they find a way to put a roundabout at 3 Mile, or simply just do the second pass through lane?
It would be for a roundabout to be into there.
Okay. So that really doesn't take into account their second pass through lane. It is focusing on finding, they're doing the engineering to make a roundabout work in that corner.
Right, because they've done that modeling in the previous study there. They did that modeling and they determined that a roundabout would function.
So we've already done the engineering planning for the second lane to go through though.
Yes.
As it is. Okay, so that's ready to go if we want to do, if we wish to pursue that.
Yeah, and that's in our work plan to pursue and do that.
Okay.
Just gotta get some more engineers.
Could we reduce the scope to simply Garfield and Hammond? And then find get it, I mean, if we've already done the engineering at 3 Mile, and honestly, I don't know how long I'm gonna be here. I may be done at the end of this year. I may be done in another 6 years. I cannot see supporting a roundabout at the corner of 3 Mile and Hammond. And I can't see advocating in the future or making it easier to do a roundabout at the corner of 3 Mile and Hammond anytime in my lifetime. So I couldn't personally support
spending money to go look at something we're not gonna do, or that I don't think we should do. That's me, okay? However, I don't disagree with the idea at Garfield and Hammond, simply because there is room. There are two lots that are large enough to allow it to happen, you know, that are a part of what the plan would be. And it is a little more traveled than 3 Mile. I mean, I think that particular part of the corridor could be even more important as a double lane roundabout, obviously, versus something like we did on 4 Mile. But
Mr. Chairman, is there a timing concern here? If we tabled this for a month or so, is there a timing problem or no?
There's currently at the intersection of Garfield, there's property for sale, and there are developers that are looking at it.
Well, even this wouldn't even, I mean, we'd have to have this. The developer buys it between now and the time the study comes back, we're still in the same boat.
We can always share them with them information that we're looking at there, and
Which I assume we do anyway, right? Is it? Wait a month?
board feels so. I mean, I would support it as it is. So, I mean, maybe if we could bring it back to, at least looking at what I would say is an adjusted scope of the project, and maybe it's just looking at Hammond and 3 Mile.
I haven't in Garfield.
Thank you. We've been here all day, folks.
As a suggestion, I mean, I understand the need, but I think there's enough. People want to think this over.
Thoughts?
If we look at just the one, is it half the cost or is it more than half the cost? I mean, where are we at there?
I couldn't
Just because
really
you
speak
split
to
it in
that.
half doesn't mean it's half.
Yeah, I
You know, I mean, typically it's not, but.
Mobilization. I mean, it's
Yeah, right.
typical, yeah.
Because
You're gonna speculate, but you're actually right. And
two separate times is more work than two at once.
This intersection's way less complicated than the 3 Mile intersection.
So then we're talking about putting a right turn, we're talking about changing that to straight and right turn, and then we're gonna go back through and make it a roundabout in the future date.
One of the things, just to highlight the remarkable capabilities of a roundabout is it can handle your areas that are very, for lack of a better term, flashy. Schools are just that. We've got several schools there, so we have a large amount of at a couple different key times of the day where you're not going to be able to, with a signal system, be able to account for and accommodate that kind of flashiness. So that's where roundabouts shine.
You're back here talking about the 3 Mile intersection there when you're talking about that, because of the school, potential school overload in that area.
Yes, right. Yeah, so that is one of the things, for consideration, that I would urge you to still consider that intersection.
So you're saying signals would slow down that kind of activity during school, getting out or coming in or something?
Your keys back up, yeah, things, your cues back up, and they eventually get filtered out. Sure, they get through.
So the other side of that, of course, is that assuming that there's any kind of development, say, I don't know, Vanderlip or down 3 Mile Road or what have you.
You can expect Vanderlip to begin to get
I was.
It's already started.
It's already started, okay.
Once it's fully approved, they're gonna start.
So the crosswalks with the signalized crosswalks that we as a road commission said, you have our blessing to East Bay Township. So at the times when the schools get out, guess what's gonna be happening then? You're gonna have kids pushing the button and stopping traffic again.
But they're gonna stop it for one leg and one direction of a leg at a time. Because where where those crossings are, they cross one lane of traffic, then they're in a center refuge, and then they hit another button, and then they.
All you
cross
need
the
in
other.
a roundabout though, this car stops here and it backs up here, one leg, this leg, that leg, it doesn't matter. You can stop traffic going from here if this leg is blocked. And so, you know, I guess, you know, there are places where I think it's appropriate for roundabouts. I'm a convert. Okay, I look at Acme and I say, that's a wonderful place. There's nobody walking up there. And I know that right now on 3 Mile and Hammond, well, there really aren't many people walking there right now either.
4 Mile.
Oh, 4 Mile?
Are you talking about the new one at 4 Mile?
No, I was talking about.
Future one, the future one.
Yeah.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
So this is just a study to tell us how much land we're gonna need to someday in the future, 2035 to 2040, do a roundabout.
And we would acquire that land sooner.
Right.
Before somebody buys those parcels and puts a building there that we then have higher expense because we're gonna be taking out of them.
And they're just doing the study and then they're handing that back to us and then we decide how we're gonna do it.
If we're gonna acquire the right of way and how much and when.
All right, so in 3 Mile and Hammond, you have a retention pond essentially. And that's all that's really available. I mean, because you're gonna move a historic building there, that's on the corner which is actually almost within our right of way. I mean, it's that building is.
Yeah. So historic buildings are moved, can be moved.
Yeah.
They're not tied necessarily right there. So, you know, that could be something that gets, you know, shifted and relocated onto the current property. It's a rather large parcel that is there.
You'd have to cut halfway into, I mean, I'm just preliminary in my head, how big the roundabout has to be, especially if it's 2 lane. If it's not a 2 lane, it's almost not worth doing again. But you'd have to cut into each of the corners of the gas stations.
Not necessarily, no, and that's where purchasing property now or setting, they can look at things and the roundabouts can be shifted. Very similar to what we've done at Cass. And the roundabout can be shifted, maximizing the vacant land or land that can be readily acquired, kind of avoiding those big impacts to bigger businesses.
In Garfield and Hammond, certainly those properties are at risk of being developed. Nothing's happening at 3 Mile and Hammond. Nothing. Nobody's gonna add on to the black school. Nobody's gonna to build in the retention pond area or into that parking lot at Olson's. And frankly, I can't imagine that much is going to happen at the gas stations there that's going to change anything. I think that corner is static until it's not static. And the only thing that's going to
has a couple of outlets.
huh? What's it?
Olson has a couple of outlets there.
They do have a couple of outlets.
Yeah, and the retention.
Well,
So. Motion to accept this system study. I'll make a motion to. Get it out, unless you want to wait. I'll make a motion to approve the right of way plan and acquisition study.
okay, Joe's made a motion to support. Do we have, or a motion? Do we have support?
I'll support.
Yeah.
Can we have just a little more discussion?
Go for it.
I've seen how the roundabouts move traffic and I'm, of course, impressed. It's much better than sitting in traffic light. What I don't like the road commission doing is they take, based on what's happened this year, they're really expensive. And we have a lot of roads that need fixing. So while I would support the study, I would support the study. If the contract worked today, I would definitely vote no to implement it. Because I'd like to see the existing roads, the same roads I've been harping on for 18 months, get some attention and some money. So I don't want to support new construction, new designs and construction until some of the stuff is. So if we had other funding sources, then I would, for these roundabouts, if money can fall from the sky, then I would vote because they are the best. I can see and accept that they're the best way to move traffic. So I'll support this study, but I wouldn't support constructing them till we fix the dang roads.
And this would allow a future board to at least have information. That's the way I look at it.
And to see, to fit, you're talking about like physically fitting these in. What is the profile of this? How far back do we have to go? And all that stuff.
Yeah.
The concept would be good enough that somebody, a future board would know.
Now, the world will know about that property, so.
Yeah.
Which they probably already do, but.
I mean, that's not, it's very valuable property to the intersections, of course.
Well, we're not doing anything more than studying where, if someday this happened, where it would be. This is what I'm understanding. So
Then the next step would be come back and talk about acquisition.
After we get the study back, then we would bring it to the board.
Whether we
discuss.
do it or not at that point in time.
Right.
Well, whether you support it or not, whether I do or not, I think it's kind of irrelevant, I think, until the vote comes up, but I think that it's another step in this east-west mobility thing. I think, it may be a piece that fits in later or not, I mean, I guess we don't know, but I think it's another step in the process this way, I guess I'm gonna have to look at it.
can I ask the audience a question?
The audience.
Does the Federal Highway Commission like these kind of?
You talking to me?
Yep.
Do they like what?
These kind of roundabouts on their road projects?
Yeah, well, Federal Highway Administration is supports roundabouts.
Okay.
Yeah, they do, absolutely.
And if I might chime in on that.
The audience and the staff. It's hard to say.
I'll shift over a seat. Okay, not like, but MDOT is looking at the intersection 72 and 22 to be a roundabout. And
Well, that's the one I saw.
we know that is a bugger of an intersection to get through.
That's gonna be interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, I will call the vote in just a second. My primary objection would be that yes, it'd be okay if we held off until we had a quote for the only intersection that I think I could ever support the roundabout on, as far as those two go, but so
1 month, unless somebody's gonna buy it, isn't the end of the earth.
right.
And I guess if we saw what the difference between doing one or two, I guess, I don't know, I guess it doesn't matter. I'm gonna guess that, it's not, like I said, not half, so it's not gonna be 17.5. It's probably gonna be more like 22.5.
Right.
Or.
I'm not gonna speak to that.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, it's not gonna be 17.5.
Generally, no, it's like a mobility,
Right, it's mobilizing it.
getting up to speed. Maybe you're gonna have a whole different crew looking at
On the second
looking at
one,
the
and then
next,
the
next
first.
one. So, you're not gonna get apples and apples.
When you're both in the neighborhood doing them both
Yeah.
at the same
You can do them
time.
at the same time, exactly.
All right.
That is just.
That's to say that we'd ever do
It's not saying we're gonna do any of them.
Either of
I've seen many a study just sit on a shelf.
All right, let's call the vote. Kylie?
Brown,
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman.
No. All right, it passes. And that study will go forward. That brings us to our item G, 2023 patch wagon purchase.
I mean,
Not
it's
really.
old, it needs to be replaced.
it's 10 years old. It probably should have been replaced a year ago, but it's suffering from difficulties.
The little patch wagon that couldn't anymore.
Couldn't anymore, exactly.
See you guys.
Was this part of our budget? Was this budgeted as an equipment
I
purchase?
don't remember specifically, but I did have 100 set aside for miscellaneous type
Miscellaneous.
stuff, usually it's small tools and stuff.
We still
I know
have,
we replaced a couple of them a few years ago. so this will
yeah,
get-
4 or 5
get 'em
years
up.
ago or something
I know
like
my previous employer, we typically turned them around after 4 years.
that. Well, they
They could
burned
beat up
through,
pretty fast.
yeah. And we had 2 smaller ones the first time around.
So
I know, so.
this is my deal. Pricing.
Move to a motion.
I'll do a motion to purchase a patch wagon at my deal price of $31,457 and 60 cents, more or less.
Earl, support. And Alan. Roll call, please.
Kellen? Or Lehman, come on. Underwood.
You could-
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, all right. All right,
Now we need to dispose of.
entertain a motion.
Motion to dispose.
Okay, Alan
I'll support that.
and Carl.
Let's get about 30,000 for the old.
Roll call, please.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Lehman.
Yes.
Gilman.
All righty. That brings us to item I, which is
Because we should.
a conglomeration, or should I say a conflagration of our earlier discussion. No, we didn't. It wasn't on fire, but it was good discussion. Okay. We had we spoke on a number of issues, starting with commissioner committees, and I'll get my notes on some of this stuff here. Essentially, just to get the commissioners a little more engaged in the what's going on around here, and perhaps even to keep us a little more involved in the direction of the road commission. We discussed the creating committees for the following: management committee. Each of these would the purpose to be determined on a couple of them, the exact purpose to be determined on a couple of them. A budget committee, which would I think help us with a couple of the commissioners working with Phil and management, looking at what's coming up in the next year as far as projects and everything, and give us a little better idea of what's coming forward. Technical committee, which would give us a little more input on the scope of certain projects perhaps, and maybe some planning input on detours and traffic patterns. And it might also feed into a general planning. What we were also discussing, another part of it was kind of a general planning overview, looking at a road system and actually looking at the next 20 years or so, where we're going to be and how we might better look at the space that we're going to need and where the roads are going to go. A committee that handles the public relations, maybe looks at ways that we can spread the good news. Essentially, some of the things that we've done that are positive in the community. And once in a while, we get a rash of, you guys are doing this or that bad or wrong or this or that. And frankly, I mean, we don't necessarily have to deny that bad things happen, but we definitely need to let folks know that for every bad thing, we've done a dozen good things. So let's hopefully we can pursue that direction. And then a facilities committee, which is basically to take a look at our our building assets, kind of a scope and need thing. Relook at even, for example, Ellen even mentioned having salt available in different corners of the county. Who knows? So I don't know that we can. I don't know that it'd be good for us to try to flesh out those committees at this time. I think we should probably talk about it a little bit further, but we definitely want to have that as a part of the discussion. Any other words on that? Did I get that wrong? Right? Okay. All right. Second, staff response follow through. I think there is a concern that sometimes we're invited to the party a little late, where there might be an issue that starts to boil over, and then we're all of a sudden, now we're included in the CC list. Not a huge problem, but it does sometimes happen. What we had discussed, if I'm not mistaken, is if it's possible that maybe every other week or something, we could just get an email compendium of the concerns that the community has brought to us, so that we can kind of see it and then be forewarned that something might be up and may not be up. But if there's something that seems like it's worth passing along, just so we know where everybody's at. Did I say that right? Does that seem to be correct? Okay. Bluff Road Gate, we got our answer on that. We talked about that. And so I'm glad that's going to happen. And then public relations just kind of falls back in the, I think it was mentioned that maybe we have a production or something, maybe something that we can put together, kind of like we did for the millage. Maybe put a little production. Hey, these are the projects we've done, and then we can pass it along in our social media or on YouTube and what have you. Anything else on that, you guys? Okay. This item E, detour design planning. I think this again, something we can look at from a technical committee kind of standpoint. I think there's some concern that maybe we need to plan ahead, maybe work with Elmer's to do a little extra work around their site, the work sites or whatnot, if it's Elmer's or whoever. What else am I missing on this?
Well, we were talking about the stress that builds up in the community on South Airport Road, how that's become a parking lot now because we don't have any viable alternatives. And one of the things was our detour, this was my take on it. Our detour is the one way through the zone, and we did that at the Hammond and 4 Mile intersection, but we only allowed traffic through one way or the other. And to me, as a member of the community, it would be worth it if we spend some money making those, like right now, if Keystone Road, we paved around the roundabout so it could be built, great. If we would have made those two-way traffic, that road could have, we have to build some temporary lanes that, on the freeway, sometimes MDOT fills in the medians and crosses it over and you run them both. That we try to keep the traffic moving in this town during our construction things. And it's going to cost us some money, but the motoring public will be pleased with it. And I think, it's on my side of town. Brad drives that way all the time. I've only driven through a couple times. It doesn't work too bad coming north, but I think because nobody can go south, the traffic is overloaded. And I would have liked to see us have a plan to make that two-way traffic through there. I know some other complications, but as part of the planning process, I think if we can afford the designs and the build, we can afford to accommodate the traffic while we're doing that.
We don't ask for the impossible, just the improbable.
Just something that's a little more difficult. And so I would ask that we could at least look at some of those solutions to provide two-way access in the areas where we're doing major construction.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay. we discussed master planning, and I think this is one of these things where once we get a fifth member on this commission, I think it will help too. But it's gonna be something we're just gonna have to sit down and do maybe a couple hours at a time and look at the grand scheme of Grand Traverse County and again, what our plans are. And I think it's obviously it's important because you guys are kind of working this stuff behind the scenes too. But again, I think it's important to impress that we are the face to the public generally. We try, we're supposed to be anyway. And it's a lot of it falls on our shoulders too. So we should have some input and a little bit more maybe instead of just being a little more, we're kind of laissez-faire right now. I mean, it's happening, we just kind of react to what, so rather than have to react, maybe plan a little even further in terms of our road system.
I might even add right down to how many subdivisions are going in this year. I mean,
yeah. And we have to take a look at the growth. I mean, I couldn't have, 20 years ago, we couldn't have looked at Garfield Township and said, oh, this is gonna happen. Oh, hell no. Excuse the, but yeah.
short of an economic collapse, it's not gonna stop.
Right. And I don't think we're gonna have an economic collapse, not here anyway. Nothing that's gonna stop the growth in this region. This region is gonna continue to grow. Anything beyond that? Okay. Item G, we are definitely going to have to come together and address the bid process. I think we have some, even amongst those of us on the board, I think we have some, I wouldn't say disagreements, but we have some where we're not exactly meeting at, so there's a smooth crossover. I think we need to discuss the parameters, not so much the policy itself, but other than that, maybe some of the ways that we finalize. In other words, some of the issues that we had, for example, was 24 hours before. Do we want to continue doing that? Do we want to try to simplify it? Is there a way that we can simplify the bid process so that there is less confusion and somebody knows that if they're the low bid, for example, they're going to win it, when the bids are open, that kind of thing. We want to talk about that and frankly, what happens after that. I think that's something that we could probably do better when we have 5 people on the board, because an extra set of eyes, maybe a fresh face wouldn't be a bad idea. So we're not going to set that meeting exactly tonight. Anything else on that, do you think? Communications. Let's see where we're at on that. I'm getting tired. Pretty much, I mean, that's, I don't want to continue to beat a dead horse or anything, but I think it's important that we do communicate well, okay, with our staff and management. We did talk about the level of communication. For example, if we need to give a message to Jay, or if we need to talk to Wayne about something, or let somebody on staff know, hey, this is carcass. We'll take care of that. I don't think those are issues. I think it seems to be the consensus that most communication should go through our manager, but I think sometimes we need to do things quickly, and so it's not at all outside the purview of the board, I think, to at least notify. Nobody's going to tell anybody what to do, though.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and I fully expected, if you know who you're calling, they're gonna tell me about it anyway.
Right.
And it probably makes more sense because they can respond quicker than I can anyway, because I'd have to track them down. So I don't see any problem that way, and they can then report to me. You don't have to make another call to talk to me about it later, because they will keep informed.
All right.
So I have no issue there. This makes sense.
The only part of it that I had that has any kind of contentious feelings about it, that's just me. This is not necessarily, I can't speak for the rest of the board. It's like, I don't want to ever think that I'm being dismissed, or that, and there are times where I will admit that I felt that way. I can get over it. I'm a big boy, but I do want to make sure that at least my thoughts are considered, even if I'm wrong. And I don't mind being told that I'm wrong, but I just want to at least have my thoughts considered up front. And I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on the subject. Okay.
And realistically too, if you guys just want to call me, my phone's on 24/7. Call me anytime.
I've never had a problem getting a hold of you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And one other thing, the sheet, when I met with each of you individually, that sheet that I handed out of what's going on and what's happening, we are going to be updating that to you anyway on a regular basis. So as things get checked off, we'll be saying, okay, these have been completed. This is what we're working on now. So as far as like non-emergent type things, that'll at least keep you informed of what we're working on now overall throughout the commission. And then when there are things that come up, you know, some of them, you think nothing's gonna come of it. And then somebody gets upset, because realistically, nobody really expected the Revenels to take it to the point where we were, but it just happened. Because I mean, we turn down people for drive approaches all the time.
That actually, this is a good time, since you brought up the name. Let's take care of this issue. I think we can. We're here. This is a regular meeting. If you have a design, and have we talked about this in the regular meeting yet? I mean,
No.
Okay. If you have a design that will work for them and they're agreeable to it, let's make it happen. I think. I mean, if we have to take a vote of the board to say we're good,
I think you do, because it is in there that because it's not standard, it's a part of that new policy. If you vote to approve it,
okay,
we can take care of it administratively.
Understanding that staff has provided a path forward for the Revenels.
Correct.
I would entertain a motion that directs staff to.
You're gonna make it.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion. I'm going to make the motion that staff provides the Revenels with that possibility and works out the details to their satisfaction and our satisfaction both. I mean, but
yes.
Okay, so that they can. This is a T construction, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
The T construction turnaround, so that they can move forward with their project as well.
Correct.
Okay, that's my motion. Does any?
I will support.
Okay, Carl will support that motion. Kind of jumped right out there, didn't we? All right.
Can I make one public comment here? And that is that this board and the staff has done an excellent job of taking a situation and creating the proper steps to make this happen. Whether the end person realizes it or not, because we went from no rules to proving the rules. I mean, I thank you for working with us, because coming from a government perspective, without any rules, you create problems that are unbelievable if you just go ahead and approve things.
Any other discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
All right. All right, the last item, and kind of as a side discussion for this last item, was a concern whether or not the overall facility is necessary, if I recall the discussion correctly. Alan had some concerns. Did you want to relay those concerns publicly? Well, I mean, it was a public meeting earlier.
I got some justification brought to me about the whole expense of the facility in Kingsley. And because I had some doubts about spending the money, because I don't like spending the money on facilities. I want to spend it on roads. But then Carl said, well, we've studied this. This is it's the right thing to do to cover the territory we have. And I said, well, if in every direction, you just, that's why we talked about a little bit of salt storage. I thought we could adjust the routes to the facility. But one of the things Dan brought to us a meeting ago or something was how well our trucks are doing here, and that colossal boondog bungle truck wash thing that really now works good and is really showing about how well the trucks are faring with it. And one of the reasons I thought, well, okay, if that's really good, and trucks are 300 grand a piece, not going down. Kingsley facility isn't built yet. We discussed, we need a truck wash in Kingsley. And
Oh, this has been talked about.
and I haven't been privy to any of your previous discussions about it, but if that's the way to keep our trucks, that especially when the facility isn't built, if we're gonna build the facility, and they've calmed me down about the expense of the facility, then let's look forward and budget for the design and budget the facility so that our trucks that are getting more expensive by the day can last.
And you made a good point. I mean, they can bring the trucks up here and wash them, but then they drive them back. And it's the underside that's really getting eaten away anyway.
Yeah.
So
we're back in the salt again.
But it's the caked up salt that does from plowing. So
Understood.
typically, you know, the guys will go out, they'll plow for 3 days and then we wash it. Because
But we will be
gonna
on municipal water, so we're gonna have plenty of water.
it's gonna actually have to be tempered down because the pressure's too high.
It's perfect for a car
Well,
wash.
it's great for the car wash.
We'd like to get, I'd like us to spend money to keep our expensive trucks up. Like,
Could we look at a car wash option?
Yes, we will. Wayne swore he would never build another car wash. That's why I was laughing.
We talked about that too.
New engineer on staff.
Hey, Jim's done some of that stuff that you might. Yeah, oh, sorry, but if the facility is necessary, I think keeping the equipment that we're buying, and we'd like to budget a little less for that as time goes on. Stuff just a little less down each of the, keeping them in tip-top shape. So that was our discussion.
Yeah.
We all sort of agreed on it. You can come back and tell us it's a really bad idea and we'll talk about it, but.
Well, you start getting 4 or 5 years of life out of a vehicle, extra.
Yeah.
Well, it's more,
Yeah.
I think at that point, it's the resale value is gonna be
As much
huge
as
for us.
anything.
too.
Right, yeah, you know.
What if the guy who's working on it can actually get to the bolts?
Well, that's even better
If
yet.
they're not corroded off of it, and it should lower our maintenance costs over time. There's gotta be some other
Yeah.
ancillary benefits.
And we will be ready, when we are ready to talk about the building, and start talking about that at the same time.
Well, that was our main meeting. I mean, we spent almost 4 hours in here, and we just,
Yeah.
it was a good discussion we had. I'm glad it went as well as it did. And we'll do it again, but we probably won't have to do it as long upcoming, I think. And we'll probably build on some of these items. We'll keep these in front of us, and then some of these things we're gonna have to feed into the commission meetings in the future, you know, upcoming commission meetings, and hopefully our county commissioners get us a qualified person or this person that fills the empty seat. So, anything else anybody want to say on today's?
I don't know if now's appropriate time, but where are we at with the city works?
Oh, yes.
When we were doing the cost share, the discussion was the township would be able to go in and kind of get a rough estimate of how much.
They're gonna be able to start talking to us through it. The rough estimates will not be in there at this point. They'll have to then ask and request. And then we will end up having to put the information in there because we don't have 100% of our actual high-end costs.
That's not like requests, like when you have to pay to do the actual.
We give them, when they ask for it, we give them the rough cost.
Okay.
They'll see Pazer.
but they don't get, you know, like a true estimate unless they pay the $1,000.
That
But
actually,
it's gonna come now.
yeah, that actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that actually brought back one of the things that we talked about. In terms of staff when we're responding, if at all possible, it probably is a good idea if staff can respond in some way. I mean, it could say, I don't know, I'm gonna get that for you, but just at least acknowledge the public concern nearly immediately if possible.
Yes.
And also, you know, in terms of like the township, there was a letter, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
And
maybe-
he received the email.
Okay,
He just doesn't check his email.
got it. Okay, and I know that that happens sometimes too. That's so.
So he had the information in his email. He
Okay.
just did not check his email. So we have.
We can lead you to the water, but we can't make you drink
Yes.
it. Okay.
We have worked out some details with him and he understands that he needs to have $1,000 deposit in order to get the final, like the
A
real
real,
estimate.
a real engineered estimate.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anything else on that? So that'll move us to item J, traffic signal mast arm fabrication. We have a proposal to build a mast arm for.
Yes, so
This is for the,
this is for the Barnes and North.
yeah, Barnes Road.
Yep. So there was some delays caused by some new MDOT standards that have come out. And that kind of created some issues. But we've contacted SME to provide us this in-factory, in the fabrication facilities, the inspection of the mast arms as they're being made and the coatings, all the way on through that process as a requirement. And SME is one of the companies that does this at that particular plant often. So we felt comfortable with having them.
Is this still part that's covered by insurance?
No,
No,
This is the new rebuild.
this is
of
the rebuild.
This is for the mast arm portion, because we have to install a mast arm at that location.
Okay, so we, we
And
don't
so-
have one now, but we. Correct. Got it.
And so it needs
So we're
to be
gonna do a
mapped out.
changeover anyway.
And this is just to review the process, not the
And
price
the-
of the mast arm.
No, this is. for
Mast
the-
arm is separate. That's part of our contract. That's already.
So this is just to review.
To watch them and do the testing and
Yeah.
the certifications that are needed.
And this is
for these-
required.
This is required.
So if we don't do this, we don't have a master arm.
If we don't do this, then anything happens with that mast arm and falls down.
We're taking all the
That's on your
responsibility
table.
of that.
So this is an insurance thing though.
So this is an assurance process that the welds are being done correctly.
Motion to review the.
Alan?
Review.
And Joe,
We got.
all righty. Roll call, please.
Neiman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes,
Gilman.
Yes.
I thought it was buying our.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that's pretty cheap. That's pretty cheap. Okay. All right, well, that brings us to manager's comments.
No, I don't think I want to keep you here any longer than needed, so
Appreciate that.
have a great evening. How's that for a comment?
Do you want to update them on the
Oh,
progress of the roundabout?
I'll leave that to you. Okay, let Wayne make a little bit of a.
Okay, let's just roll with it.
Had a biweekly on-site progress meeting with Teen Elmers and OHM out there this morning, and you got.
I do. Give me a second here.
They've been making fantastic progress out there, and we've got a couple photos there that we can kind of show you. Bella Concrete literally zoomed through placing the concrete with the GPS enabled robotic slip form curbs. So the curbs are down there. So they got probably three-quarters of the amount of curbing down. They are going to start paving next Monday and doing the leveling and the base and the leveling at River, and then moving up to Cass after a couple of days. And then they'll be able to put the traffic over onto that part as they work and construct on the other parts. And with that in mind, good weather and everything, they anticipate having the road open to traffic, not everything completed, but open to traffic August 1.
Great.
So a month versus.
Well, that's.
So a month in a row.
It's 2 months earlier than what they than they were given.
Yeah.
But a month earlier, what they originally forecast for us.
Wow.
That's River Road there.
Yeah. Wayne, what I was talking, that little thing on the
That's
left, the
river.
west side of the, where our new northbound lane is, that's the kind of thing I was hoping that someday we would have two of those, spend the money and have two of those there and bring the traffic
Yeah.
back this way.
It just seems, it just.
And
A little
a lot of that,
stretch.
because we have very tight right of way, it sometimes
Not.
could get expensive if, you know, in this particular case, that property is owned by the city.
They probably wouldn't let us do that.
That might be a pretty tall order on that, so. But we were able to accommodate that, you know, so we built the 2-lane over on the north on the east side. So as soon as we flop traffic over, then we will be able to have 2-way traffic on River on that. So, you know, when we get there, that does help.
Okay.
So
Those were from this morning.
those were taken a couple days ago here, but I think just a couple days ago, because we got almost all that down right at, we got concrete poured. And those are, credit goes to Teen Hours in their PR crews. They took some of those photos there.
Oh, look, there's somebody parked.
Let it go, man. Just let it go.
On the left, looks like your truck.
Anything else? Or we? All right, commissioners' comments, Alan?
No.
Earl?
No.
Joe?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Just as an aside, and I'll have my own, there was talk about perhaps sometimes starting the meetings, we're gonna take a look at the agendas, sometimes starting the meetings with comments and whatnot too. But nothing we're gonna act on right now. It brings us to number 8, public comment. Any public comment? Anyone? Seeing none,
No adjourned.
and we are adjourned. Thank you.